别教我教教徒波罗上次路就多就速切我这个年做就到这少钱的那公办对不？我年就点的那就结束的这个不就来上次。那到公就都做上我一些叫做世界人不。找不就点说那老给我公布去年就那上次。先就点不正面的月球，先多找我去了上次。对着见到西部苏摩节，两面清洁求罗上次。公布突厥节点播，同节前边点播。三道一点叫做先，地见先罗上次。旁边的朝着我就给人给送的着。接多得到求救不，先就求罗上次。这年这月那样的老婆到那上头，先给老婆一点点，给的那样相似。爹婆这样没小心，给我别说说话，让给三年用手的，天天上街点吧。干嘛找的毛面东，就么喜欢就不。门罗路多真多不，对些就能得到多。三诺的月堂起是莫也，我莫当年全觉着的。我当那当七月老主月，随便做的着我着我有。
Thus I have heard. At one time the Blessed One was dwelling in the royal domain of Ultra Peak Mountain with a great gathering of monks and a great assembly of bodhisattvas. At that time the Blessed One was absorbed in the samadhi of the many aspects of the non-manifold profound appearance. At the same time, noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, looking at the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom, saw the five skandhas in their natural emptiness. Then, through the power of the Buddha, the Venerable Shariputra said to the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, how should a son of the lineage train who wishes to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom? Thus he spoke, and the noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva answered the Venerable Shariputra with these words. Shariputra, those men and women of the lineage who wish to follow the practice of the profound perfection of wisdom should look at it like this. The five skandhas should be seen truly in their natural emptiness. Form is empty, emptiness is form. Emptiness is not other than form. Form also is not other than emptiness. In the same way, feeling, recognition, compositional factors, and consciousness are empty. Shariputra, like this, all phenomena are emptiness, and having no characteristics, they are unborn and unceasing. They are not impure or pure, they neither decrease nor increase. Therefore, Shariputra, in emptiness there is no form, no feeling, no recognition, no compositional factors, no consciousness, no eye, no ear, no nose, no tongue, no body, no mind, no appearance, no sound, no smell, no taste, no sensation, no phenomena. There is no quality of sight and so on until no quality of mind and no quality of mental consciousness. There is no ignorance and no exhaustion of ignorance and so on up to no old age and death and no exhaustion of old age and death. In the same way, there is no suffering, no origin, no ending, and no path. No wisdom, no attainment, and no non-attainment. Therefore, Shariputra, since there is no attainment, bodhisattvas rely on and abide by means of the profound perfection of wisdom. And since their minds have no obscurations, they have no fear. Transcending falsity, they attain nirvana. All the Buddhas who dwell in the three times have relied upon the perfection of wisdom and have become true and complete Buddhas of unsurpassable, perfect, and complete enlightenment. Therefore, the mantra of the profound perfection of wisdom, the mantra of insight, the unsurpassed mantra, the unequaled mantra, the mantra which calms all suffering should be known as truth, for it is not deceptive. The mantra of the perfection of wisdom is proclaimed. Teata om gate gate paragate parasangate bodhisoha. Shariputra, this is how a bodhisattva mahasattva should train in the profound perfection of wisdom. Then the Blessed One arose from that samadhi and said to the Bodhisattva Mahasattva Avalokiteshvara that he had spoken well. Well done, O son of the lineage, it is so. O son of the lineage, since it is just so, the profound perfection of wisdom should be practiced just as you have taught, and the Tathagatas will also rejoice. When the Blessed One had said this, the Venerable Shariputra and Noble Avalokiteshvara Bodhisattva Mahasattva, and the entire gathering, as well as worldly beings, gods, humans, asuras, and gandharvas, rejoiced and praised the words of the Blessed One.
Se sa ko sa nu ni su ne bo. Ja chen shu bi ji la so wa de. Ja ya yu bi shu ji lu zhuo dong. Da wan zha ba ji bi ku zhuo qi. Sang jie gong zhong pa pa ya se su. Fang mo da yue ji la so wa de. Xie zhuo da bi chong a de xiang. Ga dong den bi men bo zhong den de. Nian jiu dang xie gu qi song na su. Ga dong la ma dang la su wa de. Gang jian xie de zu jie zhong ga bo. Men ri bi wang xiu jie cao jie. Dong a den bi da bo ke zhuo jie. Yao se ji bo jie la su wa de. Jiao su ge de la ma du jie chang. Gang la gang de xie nian qu zong de. Chuo dong ting mo gong zhuo zeng zai bin. Zhen jian la ma nang la su wa de. Rang jiang su ro gen la da yue min. Ge zang ta ba zhi bin zhong wan qiu. Zai yue zhi bin ta ge zai ba yi. Sun zai xie nian nang la su wa de. Jie wa gen de yang da la ma da. Zhe mian qu zhe bin la long xue jie. Sa dang lang jie yun den zhou zuo nian. Bo jie chang ge gong yun da yi zhou. Sang jie qu dang zu jie qiu na lang. Xiao yu ba du da nian zhou zuo jie. Da ge qi jie jie bi su na jie. Zhuo le bin xie sang jie zhu ba xiu. Sang jie qu zu jie qiu na la. Xiang qiu ba du da nian zhou zuo jie. Da ge qi jie jie bi su na jie. Zhuo le bin xie sang jie zhu ba xiu. Sang jie qu zu jie qiu na la. Xiang qiu ba du da nian zhou zuo jie. Da ge qi jie jie bi su na jie. Zhuo le bin xie sang jie zhu ba xiu. 哎呀，这就我说，哪里前年前年也那么就是下雨的呢，你东部去这几就呢，你地图呢，你工作去些的这些叫，你嘛今年哪里我做的呢？我做的地水的没多，我这也卡图多下个月吧。
Generally, it is a custom of giving a teachings on the Lam Rim, the great deities on the stages of the path of enlightenment. There's the custom of giving the teachings in the beginning by reciting a certain verse from a certain source and going through the explanation of the verse, and then followed by the actual teachings of the subject matter, which is in this particular context is great deities on the stages of the path of enlightenment. However, we don't have a time to go through those, reciting the verse and going through the explanations.
当我说讲东西，对了，那些杂七八一确保去结果了，说那也那么等样的，接到嘛就对了，那些杂七八的钱，你刚对对着我就嘛讲的没这个进度嘛多些，比如说有求助当的跑这儿，就是现在这样的，我那去出啥这项很多呢，你就多把可能去这上的内容是，他这送进度啊。
So as His Holiness has always emphasized that one should be the 21st century's practitioners. So probably we are following this 21st century's, we are the followers of the 21st century's Dharma. So therefore, we're not going to go through this all, fulfilling all the customs of giving those teachings. However, now, according to the actual, Lam Rim the way of actually the actual custom of the Lam Rim Chenmo. It says it requires a lot of recitations while you are prior to receiving the actual teachings of the Lam Rim Chenmo, recitations, and then it requires a lot of prerequisites, preparatory practices or the preparations. And so much so it says that while one is receiving the teachings, during one's receiving of the teachings from one's teacher, it is said that there are many of them have actually attained or gained the spiritual realizations.
Chukun Simba Temptation, Zibabi Chawa, sitting in India, said that I made dinner, the Chimuneti, the Jondela, the Hijana, so Shaka Samari sang in Richi, in Tomane, and it should be the in Bitandala, Lamatella, Chachi, Chichuno, the Carriers, and Shayundi, and telling the Hichi.
So then, as usual, so we will begin with by, paraphrasing the first outlines of the actual teachings of the Lam Rim Chenmo itself, which says the greatness of the authors given in order to show that the teacher has a noble source. The teachings has a noble source.
And you put the Tangala Kibachi, Chuji Chewa career said, you think so gay Kashama said the P. She do just like net so then you call a Pobaro, and Dangala Kibachi, Chuji Chewas, and Chera Dangatella Gaboche and call a Chewa career, so you did. Pobache.
Having understood very clearly about the greatness of the authors, which is the teacher, and then next it follows showing the greatness of the teachings in order to engender respect for the instructions.
Dangadegi Gumba Carrere, Somba Potiji Gumba Carrere, Sesona, any Tayo Tanji Dando, any Sonsha Insani, did Yone Cheng de mute to reach in a Chagor Sayundi, any Nishita Shawa.
So then, what instruction that is given? And since the instructions is given by the teacher for the benefit of entire sentient beings without exceptions, likewise, the listeners or the receivers of the teachings, as we are, should also cultivate their motivations, the very purpose of your receiving of the teachings for the benefit of all other sentient beings. So when we go through this, then how do we? It then followed by how to listen to the teachings, in which both the teachings and its authors, understanding the purpose of the both teachings and then authors. In other words, yeah.
And Tayabi Sanjado Zubi Sanjay Sala Kajichi goes and Dambang Jalama Chetati Rimba, so you did. Chanto de Jizaro.
So now, how do we really establish entire sentient beings to the state of complete enlightenment? When we ask these questions, then another, the outlines, the very important outlines here, it says the sequence in which the teachings, which the disciples are to be taught the actual instructions.
That Dambang Lama Chetati is Larry Chamoko, Jean Gojiti, and tell a Zai Sachi, Matsu Shego, the Nietzsche, and Tombokata Jevers, and then launches our Gigan Setan Jembaji, Tangore, and the Gigan Tane, and then launches in Balakadobore, Setinir.
Then this will then be followed by another very two important outlines, are Lamgitsa Shinyin Tunpitsu, which means how to rely on the teacher or the spiritual guidance as a root of one's spiritual path, which is then be followed by Tenilo Chidarjambitsu, how the students train their minds after having relied on an authentic teacher.
당한 로고 된나로 제다자 이래 발라니 다 대이 된라 니보 렘비시 교와당 니보 제단렘비 츠니제 다 도모제자 다 니보 제단렘비 츠데라야 니체 랑치 나자라 녜바지스다 니보 렘츠 뭐지 다 도모제자 다 니보 렘츠 뭐데라 송제 주부 총연다 티모에 나제르 마냐스렌지 주부 제다 티모에 나제르 마냐스렌지 주부 챔피언 나제르 마냐스렌지 다 도모니제사 다 주변 챔피언 랑제를 마냐서는 줄 자이사제 송제 대장은 주변 고담바 센제 코나덴바 센데 제다 지비츠 센제네 쇼발로 로츠제 다 동번인지자 다 센제네 쇼발로 로츠데라이네 자이사제 송제 센제네 쇼발 로발로 로고비진세 로발로 로베 산제 문주바 덴바네 로발로 로베 림바 니시바지 다 동번인지자 다 로발로 로베 림바 니시바세 데라이네 자이사제 니레 아니 테바 첨보로 로즈다 치바도 도제 테바로 로즈제 다 테바 첨보로 로즈되는 자이사지 송레 상세제 로발로 혼대장와 제세제 남바송아 상세제 로발로 혼대장와 장네 제세제 남바송아 존에 인제달로 비림바스 당마츠데나 아니 존에 제달로 비림바스이 될래야 사제 송레 강라로 비제 될라로 바난 뒤시 될라로 비림바스 내가 저때 단다들 아니 될라로 아니 제세주 쇼바나 신루데 노로라 아니 제세주 쇼바서 간르드 그래세 자시 단르지 당아서 카투 사제지도 말에 아 상추게 센제네 아니 제세주 쇼바라 로고 제세주 쇼바텔라 바로데 시바 주여레 바로 시바 주노라 제세주 쇼바 연수조바 간르드 그래세 데 아주 디카도레.
So we're on the particular chapter, how to train after taking the vows. The vows referring to the bodhisattva's vow. How to train after taking the bodhisattva's vows has 3 parts. And what are the precepts are based upon, how all the precepts are included in 6 perfections. So now we are the second particular chapter, so how all the precepts are included in the 6 perfections. The perfection of generosity, morality, patience, and so on and so forth. So those 6 perfections are the fixed numbers of the bodhisattva's practice.
당가서 게데 가서 미바체데 제도 예전에 가서 내가 단다 쇼쇼라시에 미나 제난지 처음에 ndenola mi pa kama yin song ci ge ani ndenola tamba tu bya mo la la re ji be la ma na ji guan de de ji xie ji de namba se de ji dan da kono ngone ji ro mo zhe ba so de ji ma yin ba mo su kono ye bi ji da se ye ji rang xin ji ye bi mi ba che ani ta guo de ne rang na rang nyang ye ne se jie tang che de wa de ji dong ye men de ba yin na yang de yu ju zhu me xie dong ye ji zhong ang xu xu zhu de ye nyang ta be se jie de da 네 저들에서 내가 쇼베게 제 라마 아니 세단 제바 쳐나 예베 쳐나제 되나야면 동안 신절로도서 전에니 대바다 아니 니지 쇼제 뭐 예베 된다라 그만 니에서 좀 배치게 당해도 제도.
So let's prior to our actual teachings as usual, let's take a couple of minutes to meditate by cultivating motivations. In other words, cultivating a faith towards the Buddhas and root gurus and lineage gurus, and cultivating compassion for all sentient beings. So to do that, let's visualize Buddha in the space in front of oneself, surrounded by all those root and lineage gurus, and imagining them that they are so delightfully, compassionately looking upon us, not just as a depiction on the walls or something that is depicted in the tanka, but rather as an actual person. All those great beings are gathered. And then in their presence, you yourself is surrounded by entire sentient beings. Just as you yourself long to achieve happiness and overcome sufferings, so too all other sentient beings have a similar wish to achieve happiness and overcome sufferings. Although they long to achieve happiness and overcome sufferings, they do not know how to accumulate cause which give rise to happiness and how to accumulate cause which which actually get rid of sufferings. So therefore, try one's best to have a compassion for all sentient beings, and take a couple of minutes to meditate on that, cultivating compassion and faith towards Buddhas and great and lineage gurus.
야, 당가 좀더 제단에 나가서 데려와. 소소로 노보야는 노보데 노베 노뇽은 다 농어미 시와잖아. 근데 배사람도 생저 장신 요세어데 차소와이나. 근데 생지 장신게 땡노로라 강에도 매보 강가 매보 차네. 코노에 녀마를 마서 내가 대유에 지지. 땡가서 장신에서 요들어와. 대고 뭐미 시와잖아. 이 강에 간 걸려. 디 뭐시비 된다라. 내가 저기 거서 뭐 체내데 제고요라. 마도 손도도 맞아 지는 명이지 나카노로라. 지 롱다더비 손지 말어 맞아.
So here now, it is essential to understand that we have such a precious jewel within us, which is precious jewels referring to one's the mind, that is nature of luminosity, the luminous mind, clear and luminous mind that is within us. It is because we are unable to recognize, we are unable to identify and recognize such a precious jewel that is innately abiding within the stream of being of all of us. So now, if we're able to let this, the nature of one's mind, which is the mere luminosity, it will then, overcome all the sufferings that we are undergoing right now. So our sole purpose of receiving these teachings is to understand the nature of our mind. It is, we do have this basis or capital where we can actually make a progress upon having the basis within us. So without having any basis, that we're not something that we are just looking for something that is baseless. Rather, we do have this basis. Upon having this basis, we are longing to achieve higher status.
당가서 가서 파신 주보대 넘버 탕치 말에 사제 살은 로에기 냥내데 넘버 탕치는 파신 주베 코는 마디겐지 요 말이에요. 아니 내가 좀 시에서는 가서 도모가 저기 자와상 먹으면 속에 도대진로 시야잖아. 아니 저기에 샤브지 스타네 근데 가서 바로텔라 아니 파바 통영이 시에바데는 로베 생겨서는 시에바데야 야 디바로라 칸네데스 전에 아니 저시 저서 가서 이天上되래 당다 지바래
So all the teachings of the Buddha, in other words, the skillful means of achieving state of happiness, a state of complete enlightenment, are all encapsulated within the six perfections. There is no such practice or the method or skillful means for achieving enlightenment which is not included within the six perfections. We have covered this, how entire teachings of the Buddha or the conducts of the bodhisattvas are included within the six perfections according to the sutra, ornament of sutra, and also followed by the treatise of Asanga and the great master Sengi Sampo.
맞아 가서 많이 되게 저서 맞아 대사카게 파신 정도 로저 제디 용기 자형기 싸워대 아니 대체그래 가서 자와 상공금에서 것도 제디 되게 제바대 파바톤 가서 로베 생겨서 문제 제바된 세세네 인지 코 사이 정도 코레 야가시죠.
So at the monastery in India right now, this the actual teachings of the perfection that we're in, the monks are endeavoring is based on the Maitreya's Abhisamaya Alamkara, which is the ornament of clear realizations, the treatise on the ornament of clear realizations, and the commentary of Dewa Dunsa, which means the clear meaning, the commentary on the clear meanings of the Abhisamaya Alamkara by great teacher Lupin Sengi Sampo.
다듯이 다가 전임바이다 니바 샤라 고링에 바세디 지다에는 가서세디 용지 지자체는 시에로디 아니 술라 아니 저히 디디치 맞아요는 최된 도와진 로고에는 잘라도 슐로 큰 요로 지야 로버지래 다다 샤라 고링에 바세디 사지 장도티.
So now here it says niba, so which means the shala korim niba, which literally means an ancillary discussions of the fixed order of the perfections.
고고랭에 바세디 파신 조도 동보 랑지를 제거나 동보 신비 파신는 것도 제거래 아니 파신 조버들 초매 계시시나 코노스 바레나기 초매열에 차라 계시시나요 단다 고래나기 차라열에서 단다들.
So what this is actually indicating here is now, if you talk when speaking about the practice of the six perfections, so six perfection, just as we find at a particular order or the sequence of the six perfections are found, likewise, when speaking about the actual realization of those perfections by means of one's practice, it is the realization must be also actualized by means of proper sequence, as it is as we find in the text, and also it also talks about the subtle, the coarseness and the subtleties of the six perfections. It is also followed by the sequence or the proper order that we find in the text, beginning from practice of generosity and so on.
Jimbala meta shin machabi jimba yona sutrin lemba shi nyeshe lepa dombi sutrin dang dena nöbala zopa joro sondu pashe domba songi rimba.
So now here in discussions has actually laid out as the three parts: the order of arising, the order in terms of inferior and superior, the order in terms of coarseness and subtleties, coarse and subtles. So now here the first, it says the order of arising. When you have a generosity that is disinterested, interested in unattached to resources, you take up ethical disciplines. When you have an ethical discipline, which then retains you from wrongdoings, you become a patience with those whom you harm, those who harm you. In other words, sorry.
당가서 고아데 따다렌토도 아주 류동 농실을 차선 슈체모 메나 아니 동생의 용어래 아니 차선 슈체모 메나 아니 피게도 소소를 종나서에게 로데 개그 말에 순생들이 그래.
So it's clearly mentioned that if one is not attached to one's resources, one's body, and so on and so forth, then when you actually engage in the practice of giving and so forth, you will not have attachment with regard to one's belongings and so forth. So then whenever we engage in the practice of generosity, your practice of generosity will become authentic.
차선 슈체모 메나 단레 제토로 소에게 단레 제토 소에 단레 슈체모여서나 아니 니셔를 주고 말와 니셔를 민주의 니미의 통고여서나 아니 니셔를 민주의 깔래기 수업을 제토 그래 단레 인도 그 수제래.
So it's a very, beautifully arranged. If you do not have attachment to one's belongings and the bodies and so on and so forth, then the ethical discipline, restraining from wrongdoing, will follow by that, because one is actually free from attachment and aversion. So therefore, your practice of discipline or the ethical discipline is followed. And then similarly, if this is possible, then you become so patient, and you will not have any kind of resentment, or you will not have any motivations of retaliating when someone harms you, which will then become a practice of patience, and you will be able to. You are actually willing to endeavor your practice, and regardless of how hard it may be.
그래서 용코롱이 저기 저마도 나라 장다 코롱이 고아질 렌토로 가서 동생세디 마젠을 마차기 동이 선바 수춘세디 송이 선바 아니 송이 선바데 단에 제토기 유저바.
So here now, we need to have proper understanding of what is meant by the practice of generosity. The practice of generosity is a tongsen, which means the mind free from attachment. Whatever that you are giving, you must do so without any attachment to whatever the gifts that you are giving, which is designed to given to someone. And then this will then be followed by the sungsem, the restraining from wrongdoing, or restraining from engaging in negative deeds and so forth. And if that is possible, then the patience or the practice of patience will be naturally followed.
zoba jorochi ta tendri yu zoba la kashi de jetu na kashi la me jo yu zoba ya na dobi jen nyong ye zunri zamba ne so so do.
So then here it says when you have the patience, wherein you do not become dispirited with the hardships, the conditions for rejecting virtue are few, so you are able to persevere joyously.
다 데로 가서 하고 그러 저파 슈첨보 여기는 당연히 제 투구 문도세 줄루부터 연구 말에 뭐하잖아요. 델 도비 젠데 용로 윤산 콜 하바도 줘야지 좋아도 패그로 지단 뒤지는 것도 다 알아.
So if you have a proper practice of patience, then nothing will actually hold you from engaging any practices. because you are patient enough to engage in whatever the practice that one is willing to do, because normally that we are holding back, it is due to lack of patience. So if you have a patience, then nothing will actually hold you back from engaging in practice. So then this will then be followed by the joyous perseverance. So then it says, once you joyously persevere day and night, you will produce the meditative concentrations that facilitates the application of your attention to virtuous object of meditations. So it is just like we normally have a saying that if we make an effort, and why wouldn't we have a result out of making such effort?
So
then it says, when your mind is in meditative equipoise, you will know reality exactly.
하샤나기 미파 일을 메시마 게마로와 미파 찔라 센테르 가세로바 장지 세데 슈르 체본도 우리 가르선 요에 롱메와나 롱메나 요데랑신 세보 차와데 세보 세장로 가서 심한다고 지배잖아.
So here if the more you are stable, your mind with the chosen object of meditations, and the better clarity of the better clarity of the object of meditation will become. So therefore, it is just like if the candle is very steady. If one keeps the candle somewhere where it is free from winds and so forth, then the clarity of candle, the light of the candle will be brighter. So if the flame of the is flickering by means of this the winds, then the light will not that bright.
대체. 당가속에 상추 셈바나기 미조게 약가제데 니레코 자치모 시에나 마시나 아니 장진제 메보 조에 견달라 상추 셈 dans compétent 아니 dans 메보 조에 견달라 담에도 비셔서야 인자네 거기 나는 마소는 비게 저석이 배도도 괜히 인자네 약가 가려는 큰이기 뭘 용도요 다 마소는 콤바지 저거에나 콤바데 데레세 저거 조사데 아니 메보 조거에 되니래 콤바지 거에 상추게 셈다 담인 거 속도 눌러니로.
So here now the sole objective, the purpose or the objective of practicing bodhicitta is to overcome self-cherishing mind, to destroy self-cherishing mind, and to overcome grasping at self when practices or cultivates the wisdom realizing selflessness. So those are the two main pillars upon which one can build our spiritual, journey. So and those two, grasping at self and self-cherishing mind, are the ones that needs to be destroyed by means of cultivating bodhicitta and wisdom realizing selflessness.
just show like it in a song in the Yala de Datanjin to be shallow down to song. In the passion tombos Nala soba to see Tatuna, Kariki down the resana, and Sheroji passion also to be Tandala, and Song Shanjore, song in the Loy Mundo with the Chili dead.
So all those the practice as we find as we find in the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life, all the branches of the practice are the purpose of cultivating wisdom realizing emptiness. Similarly, all this practice of the 6 perfections that we are talking about, we're discussing on, are all are for cultivation of the wisdom realizing emptiness.
Teach. Yado Jatun Joroji. Chomeji Chomegi Rimba Nesa. Hama Shima Shimala Hama Mela Shima Shima Chogo. Taragi Rimbane Hama Shimale Juba Juba Shalawa Ralas. Shimana Hama Nale Juba Shakawe Rangi Hamale Tawa Den Dodejele. Hamala de Shimachi Medan Chud Neshetan. Rabatane Tayishi, Deda Rimba Timba Yin Xie So Sondua.
So then here the text says, the order in terms of inferior and superior, each preceding perfections is inferior to the superior one that follows it. The order in terms of coarse and subtle, each preceding perfection is easier than the subsequent one to engage in and perform. So it is coarser than the subsequent one. Each subsequent perfection is more difficult than the preceding one to engage and perform. So it is more subtle than the preceding ones. The ornament of the Mahayana Sutra says, because the subsequent perfection arise contingent on the preceding ones, because they are ranked as inferior and superior. And because of their coarseness and subtlety, the perfections are taught in order.
The Chome said it and the Chobo in Bikachamaro. Chome said that Doja Hamala and Shima Meba, and it and Richana, and Chome say Rimba Singitary. Meba said the better you say Joboji Ketchin Jedane, Tijinta Kojimaro, Doja Chana Chome Yoroa, Tendriki Chomeche, and the Taragi channel and Hamala and Shima Jaguayans and Jack Alagi Channel and Tara, Jedan Tara Jack Alay, Tom Kalay, and Tendriki Taragi, Namajo Sitan Momodoa.
So here, when speaking about inferior and superior, we should not have a notion of our conventional term or the language of inferior and superior, because by saying that this is inferior, so we don't have to practice because we need to practice superior and so on and so forth. This is not what we are talking about here. And also here now, when it speaks about coarseness and subtlety, it is due to the difficulty of cultivating, the difficulty of gaining the realizations, because the previous ones are far more easier to gain, realize, easier to realize or actualize when it comes to the actual practice of generosity, ethical discipline, and so on and so forth.
Ngato tanda omano no sachu xie de xie de mo chwa de passion chula jane ani ngamale nyale haba to be tana sa ani chuting nya ba da sa ni ba sa so ba se de ani passion pado de shi ba ju ne ji zo ya de sa ra ra nyale haba to be chen de ri chana ko chome ja ya di ro.
Also, we find that the Chandrakritis, the Madhyamaka Avatara, which is the root text of the Madhyamaka, the Madhyamaka or the middle way, where we find that the 10 chapters 10 chapters belonging to the 10 perfections, in other words. And so all of those chapters are given in sequence, beginning from practice of generosity. Once you are able to perfect it, one's practice in generosity and actualize the realization of generosity, one will then naturally transcend oneself to the second stages, which is the practice of perfection of morality and so forth.
됐지. 다 맞아 되는 현실이지. 다 바로 대신 바 둘을 내가 같은 첨부에나 다 바로 대신 바 둘 로고에나 다 바로 대신 바 둘이 가르래서네. 아니 바로 대신 바 둘이 내 단대시. 아니 시바도 파신 타만이라서 돼. 아니 단대라 하통시에디 상대의 싫어니래 미세기 되네. 아니 바로 대신 바 둘이 미세기예요. 다 무슨 거스 보여. 다 그런 라기 문제지서 돼.
So now we are on the in chapter 9 the perfection of generosity. But then when you look at the last, the outlines, which is the process of learning the perfections, it says, the process of learning the perfections has two parts. So it's how to train in the bodhisattva state in general, and in particular, how to train in the last perfections. So now in this particular chapter, we will be taught the individual perfections, individual 6 perfections, beginning from generosity and so on.
That's somba tell lobby balani. Any passion shoba chula lobby, Sudan, Chebado, Pasha Tamani, la Lotsi law, so Dombolani, Rangi Sanji, Chu membership, Para Passion down, Genji membership, Duala, Duajala, Lotsu, Marilopa, or Sondo. Whatever the general.
So then it says how to train in the bodhisattva state in general. Here has 2 parts. It says training in the perfections that measure the qualities you will have when you become a Buddha. And the second, training in the 4 ways to gather disciples that help others to mature.
됐지. 뒤중가서 그 용자전에 시그래. 배나 라지 디와시베 바로 대신 바주다 지지 디와시바 뒤용고 보셨잖아. 뒤중가서 용자제디 되는 타녀제 그래. 단대들 랑기 지 말에 랑기 상제주 주메바시바 바로 대신 바스 자도 뒤중 카투자잖아. 라지 메바시바 바로 대신 바주다 아니 지지 메바시바 뒤용고 보셨잖아. 들어자. 마 용기바 타녀자용디 거대워.
Normally, we have a saying for this too, how that the 2 parts, the training in the perfection and the mature the qualities of yourself and so on. We have a saying that in order to subdue one's own stream of being, the practice of perfections is essential, and in order to subdue the continuum of others, and the practice of training the 4 ways of gathering disciples is essentials. This is how we normally find in other texts.
됐지. 따라 랑게 상제주 주민바시 파신 때라 아니 사제잖아. 사제세가 다 주도 다 그소베지 사제 모제 주도 시그래. 제법면도 주제 아니 짐바다 수준 저바 준주당 상대당 싫어질로 아니 동bol라시 아니 짐비고 데라 가사 대제발한 주비 더 아니 짐비로데 야와 대다게 된디고 오송도 달로도 그 추도요 뭐시
맞습니다. So now here, training in the perfections that measure the qualities you will have when you become a Buddha as 6 parts. Here it says, how to train a perfection of generosity, how to train in the perfection of ethical discipline, how to train in the perfection of patience, how to train in the perfection of joyous perseverance, and how to train in the perfection of meditative stabilizations, and the 6, how to train in the perfection of wisdom. And so now here, how to train in the perfection of generosity has 4 sections. What generosity is, how to begin the development of generosity, the divisions of the generosities, and summary.
당가서 파신 주기 노이 동부 신바의 시에도 신바의 시에도 근데 신바 생긴데 간제질 세거래 근데 신비 파신데 라줄에 집이 더 가래래 니바데 아니 손바들 신비 파신데 야완도 가세요래 아니 타마들 냥랑이 잡던 뒤손을 줘 손을
So it's very clearly mentioned here now, the 4 parts. How to train the perfections of generosity has the 4 parts. What is generosity, in other words? What is generosity? And how to begin the development of generosity, and the divisions of the generosity, and the summary of the generosity.
나 동번에 손도 상사래 진빙고 강세나 요새 통제다 랑게 류라 메타비 상주 셈비 마차바다 렌지 제비 셈바 강인바 당 대균네 한바 진바셔이 뭐보 용서 동이 류당하게 레당 제송바다 동이 셈바 개와당 대균네 한비 링하게 레소 손도
So now, what is generosity here? What is generosity? Here, now the Bodhisattva's label says, Jansa. What is the nature of generosity? It is the intention accompanying Bodhisattva's disinterested, non-attachment to all their positions and their body. And motivated by this, the physical and verbal actions of giving the things to be given. Hence, it is the virtue of generous attitude, and the physical and verbal actions which are motivated by this. Bringing the perfection of generosity to completion is not contingent on the removing beings' poverty by giving gifts to others.
대체 지당 상주 세비 진바세디 지가 손을 마서는 이제 탐에 받을 강을 미거바지 배유대 배 샤테어 손데 지 전화 말에 가르사나 셈비노게 냥나기 차세 도에 들어와.
So here now, when speaking about engaging in the practice of generosity, it is not that something that we give away to someone. Whatever that's the substances or the object that is to be given to other is something that is unwanted by ourselves. Because very purpose of engaging in practice of generosity is to overcome attachment. So if you are giving something that is unwanted, something that is not wanted by yourself, and suddenly it is not going to help us to reduce our attachment, isn't it?
나쪽에 시사 메타리만 또 망치와지 나쪽에 다 이제 로도 샤와셔서 강이 받에 도송게 노게 차선데 뒤에메데 여여바래 차선데 여여바 지 띠무데도 코푼도 로부지레 샤당생데 젠더지 마체나 콜롱 예바야만 차선도 바 마서 센데 예메데 여비소르지.
So here, whenever we engage in any kind of actions of body, speech, and mind as an ordinary beings, our actions are always accompanied by three poisons of the mind, particularly this attachment. Attachment is the one that is omnipresent with any kind of actions that we may undertake. Attachment is always there. Those other two poisoners, ignorance and hatred and so on, will sometime, there is a possibility of having absence of those two, but the attachment is omnipresent.
Triggy Yemen Jen to get Tangela, Nipo Tanto, the Shinton Cabo, Labadamatun, Depawa said the Miko Taton, the Pichil must send the Sonichiroa. The Triggy Nimila, Donlan, Guy, the Limagi, Shalon Yosuzoba, Ranshije, Samachayo.
So here, since this defilement such as attachment is omnipresent, thus it's extremely difficult to get rid of. It is extremely difficult to apply a direct antidote towards to overcome these defilements. Particularly, we are as a Depawa, who are taken rebirth within the Debekam or the desire realms. The beings who are taken rebirth within the desire realms has an intense desire towards one's belonging, and so on and so forth. So if one is able to apply antidotes towards desire, if the desire or attachment is eradicated, then all of your body, actions of your body and speech will become pure.
일단 된적이 차세 슈치모 나소연의 심파세디 이치미지마 제지 거비소는 천한 자지면 제좀 위험하네. 상추세비 심파세디 피게 차병하게 유를 줘야 돼. 매바 간시질라. 아니 장라 강여바데 피게들 땅토에 센터되어야 돼. 된적이 심비냐네.
So now, here when speaking about practice of generosity, it is not necessarily that you have to have some kind of substances or some kind of object that is to be given to others. But rather, when speaking about practice of generosity is free of attachment. That is all about practice of generosity. And a motivation of giving away everything, even though that you have not given everything away, so long as you have a genuine motivations of giving away everything that you have, that very motivation, which is free from attachment, is said to be the practice of generosity.
나빠도 상주선비 심바에서나 뒤강을 피 파쇼기 강을 심비 예선에 차선매제사기 유대니라 자와 슈첨부 슈죠라 인자네 델라 템비게 강 제바되니 링하게 쇼나 간지 총소나야 된다 템바지마도 링하게 토노로라 아니 가사 니셔의 연구 말에 매여자데 네 동생다 대균의 한비 링하게 레송에 진세되래.
So, particularly when the bodhisattva was engaging in the practice of generosity, their practice of generosity is actually forced by their compassion and sense of caring for others. So therefore, everything that the bodhisattva does will become a purposeful or meaningful. Whatever the actions of the body and speech, which is taken by the bodhisattvas, will be a purposeful and meaningful.
텔레 지비 파신 조반에서 당가주 지비 파르데 심바 조바 간데질에 세거를 나와이나 텔레 지비 파신 조반에 지비 제젤라 또에 로아노지 우와 보알라 메테데 데타마이나 다동양 로아 제공 제공보 드마유베 카제지 자와나 니 짐바 타마신 번조로 손도.
So then here it says, otherwise, since there still remain many destitute living beings, all the earlier conquerors would not have attained the perfect generosity. Therefore, the physical and verbal aspects of generosity are not the main thing. Let's go. Let's take 10 minutes break.
Yedong Guru Rona Minre Nongo Nuyon Doyo Image. 아야 대령 가서 가슴에 저 중에 되는 저 중에 뒤에 잡을라 봐. 저 중에 여배라다.
진 저한테는 예 서로 시설을 제.
다다래.
근데 근데 가서 뭐 민게 아니지. 근데 진짜 당배 나리야 진짜 근데 사님은 시오로 봐. 사님은 시자리야 돼. 세림 손의 디그레베 세림 제 컨디션을 제 송도.
선이 덴차 동보데 매버체기나 선이 로사 코스 로사를 지로 대녀가 간선데 예술로에 되는데 대녀가 네 쇼마게 자녀마데 매버체 아니 제가 디그레 아니 개념아 미세되서요 난 디기도
라스라스 예 맞아 예 음식.
안타다 도체
예 건조 쇼크지 알아서.
어때로 샤르지 그래서 미세 좋아요 나로다
Shall we begin asking our questions or
저 소소소데 깨져서 내셔데 소소 깨데 저용도 피데 내는 저도 강기 자강치도
less? So if you have questions, you can just unmute and begin asking questions.
That's fine, go ahead. He just had to unmute and start asking.
I'm waiting for his permission. So I do have a question.
Okay.
The question has something to do with the aspirational and with the bodhisattva vows and the ceremony attached to them. I understand the difference to the best of my ability, the difference between aspirational bodhisattva vows and the engaged bodhisattva vows. But I'm not absolutely clear whether or not the ceremony for aspirational bodhisattva vows and engaged bodhisattva vows is the same in content and complexity. So that's what I'd like to know. Is there a difference in the ceremony for each one, or and if so, is it in complexity or is there no difference?
That's all. From Chair Morong and the Joe Dirisha. Chidan and the Chanjusin be Tomba Yoruba. Chanjusin be Tomba and the Monson Choge Pony Tomba Sumso da any Juxem get Tomba Shuzunia, Choge Kavar Mado Kay Yomarwas Queen. In a case, you have a Queen Choge Made Kavar Monson Choge Sumso da any Juxem get Tomba Casa Tomba Densunia Kaba Carriores, the direction. Sunsu Kava Yer Pigeon Yodos, Sunsu Kaba the Yogurt, Dombo Coron, Molia Kaba Carriores. Monson Choge Sumso the Juxem Dombanian.
대자 그런 게 담바 렘비 초카다 렌스기 레체바 매바치 다 주세이나 인치미지게 지게인세도 당체자 거지 주세 담바 레게는 당체 제네 당체 그런 방법 그런 당체자네 이게 레게인세데 제스지 쇼발라 토고인세데 베티 세 통비고네 당체자 거 다 메센 이게 담바 렘비가라 당아 소지 조나네 라리 마조나 팔랑치 칠레네 아니 제투어 쇼자네 아니 다 melang이 토네 심비토네 아니 다 상주생이 편한다 뜻이 토네 제네 아니 간사 렘바포 라니예 아니 당자 유메 이체바레.
So far as the content of those the vows, the spiritual the vows by means of ritual and the vows of the engaging bodhisattvas, there isn't any differences.
Okay.
However, when it comes to receiving the vows and making a commitment,
Right.
then suddenly there's a big
Right.
difference between the two.
Okay.
So for one, which is the aspirational vows by means of ritual, you're actually, if possible, even when you are receiving the aspirational bodhisattva's vow by means of ritual, it is okay. It is best to make a commitment to engaging in practice of the bodhisattvas. If that is not possible, you just have a genuine aspiration to engaging to engage in bodhisattva's vow. It's more like aspiration. But when it comes to the receiving the engaging bodhisattva's vow, not only that you aspire to receiving this bodhisattva's vow, you are, completely committing yourself to follow the vows and to the fullest extent of your ability, that you are committing yourself to engaging in the bodhisattva's deed. So this is a commitment, big commitment that you are making.
Right.
Once you have taken the bodhisattva, engaging bodhisattva's vow.
Te nga tsu tujin nyanglen le nenga chimbu jire, tujin choso ye nga tsu tu nyanglen che de, teche sojo ge damba le de nga tsu inchi ito nando wa, ni tseba jangan ro da tseno tendo la dirong len to na ha le ye lau chimbu che, en teche sojo damba len sa de, en dinju de la, nga tsu kase lang ri chimbo no la shangchu senge damba len nan dusu len kuru se ne, len sen je wa, te lulu je ne ma lo te ha koba che, te len sen de ha kobe to ne choka tagara jeban ro ma to na, ko ye la tsosa je kare che gan che ne, kuncho son la da je che se de wan, 대신 소준 주들 상주생이 담바 진행 샤와이나 매생이 담바 진행 샤와이나 할래 있으나 대 소소 거거 주지래다.
So here I would encourage that if you have time, sometime when it's a special occasions or special days, you can take this Mahayana vows.
Right.
Mahayana vows. So which is already translated in English. So you can read the Mahayana vows by yourself. And once you have completed the Mahayana vows, then you can also receive the bodhisattva's by yourself, following the Mahayana vows. So it's a very, very good opportunity. It's a really, really good practice if you're able to do that.
I think most of us here have. I know I have, and I refresh them, in a shorter way every day, almost as best my ability. So I just wanted to clarify. I thought it was the same content, but I wanted to be sure, and I thank you very much, Rinpoche.
네 라 단다 대 코서기 인지메지 쳐서기 상추생이 담발래나 간절간 랭고르세 그래서 라리 첨모노기 디디 지시상에 될 연주 자로 가시다 인지메지 자로 가게 전에 시에는 안 되지 대대 해소하이나 아니 미바체 따라네 아니 선제 조소번에 니 담발래잖아 아니 정원로 이제 쇼게 따버리시 지기 되는 상추생 담발래게 송도 내가 저 단다 깔레슈 저문강이 선바데 랑상지 바지 로추바 장제 상추생 쇼바쇼는 로토로잖아 할래 있어나로 도서 배 개첨보.
So it is, we have discussed and covered that part of taking bodhisattva's vow during our previous teachings in Lam Rim Chenmo. So you can just go back and read that part very carefully, and the instructions given in the Lam Rim Chenmo is so descriptive. So it is not something that is confusing at all. The visualizations and what is to be recited while you are actually receiving the bodhisattva's vows, which is normally, I take refuge in rituals and I confess all my negative deeds that I have accumulated from the beginning life and so on. So His Holiness always says that this is very easy and convenient way of taking bodhisattva's vows. So I strongly encourage that you could do that.
네. Any questions?
Any other questions?
Yeah, I'll ask a question, Rinpoche. So of the 18 bodhisattvas,
What is? I can't hear. There's static through there.
can you hear me now? Is this a little better? I'll do my best because my computer is a problem.
Oh, okay, sure.
Okay. So Rinpoche, of the 18 primary vows, there are two, holding distorted views and giving up bodhicitta, that don't have the four binding factors associated, which means that all day as I forget, I'm breaking those two vows. Am I misunderstanding the intent of saying that I'm not to hold distorted views and giving up bodhicitta, or am I'm constantly falling down? I try to purify my misdeeds every day and so on, but it seems to me that these two vows are, for most of us, pretty unattainable. Can you give some advice?
Okay. Gini makarsta.
I. What do you have with Poma Zonda?
You said the kid in the shah said the kid.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear at all. I was hearing what you read, but I didn't know.
Let me try. I'll speak slowly. Okay. Now, my question has to do with two of the 18 root vows: holding distorted views and giving up bodhicitta.
Oh, okay.
And you don't have to violate the four binding factors to violate these two vows. And I find I forget all the time, and it seems
slow down, Ken, for him. Slow down.
Okay, I find I forget all the time. So it seems to me that I'm constantly breaking these two vows. Am I misunderstanding, or is there some explanation that would help?
So, two vows, you're constantly breaking the two vows. Can you specify the two vows? I didn't hear that one.
Holding distorted views.
Okay, holding distorted views, okay.
Giving up bodhicitta.
Okay, I got you.
Okay,
I got you. Very clear. Finish it. Put on the Tadung Choge, you're about to.
Oh.
Tadung Choge, and the Nani, the Pro and the Nidi. Tadung Choge, Nani, the Senangdua.
Oh.
What is this? I want to. Tadung Choge, the Nani, Nidi, Kupetawa, Koraya, Nyamgu, sort of to that Jangdom, the Nyamgu, sort of to stay. Tawa, the instead of Tawa down and the
Tawa Madrid. The Tawa Madrid, the thing.
Oh, Tawa Martin, because Tawa the distorted the direct Wakaza.
Tawa Madrid, Tawa Madrid, they said,
Tawa, Jansen Pong was sick, or Janju Sempong, the Munju Semton segmento.
Minju Sempton, don't watch them. The Sanga is a Zaton, Sanga is a
Munju Semton, don't watch your meeting, Sangagina Chati or Rodumje.
because Shanghai Delegate
Tao Shemetin Magozugro, Tao Shemetin.
Date Chunum, the Shajaman, Samuel, Shadam, Tejapon, Toko, Chopon, Majatuni. Majatuni, they don't so to say this in a Dutch home,
Lokta is what you say, something like the Lokta Yova. Lokta, something like the Lokta Jonso Simon, the Lokta down, Jan. Then the solar pound and Yamizma, this segment with the Lokta down, Janju Sem Pawani, what Janju Sem Torgo, sort of the Ditawa Yondo sort of Judus. Jansen Pawan, then that in our patient Janju Sem Dombe than a Yenamena.
Couldn't Loda Tanamason. Tade Tendu no get the Saturn judges, so don't so say, Hi, Saturn check. Shanghai Saturn the President Saturn Chikachi inside. Jit Shawmadu. Conject to drink it Saturn coming about the Kono Saturn the Moon Saint Jana, and tell them Yogo Yasona, and tela dota che laba de ha ge ten ge za dong yong so na ha de le so na ha ge za dong de ne na ne jing ko le yong jo da ju le ne ten ge za dong ja ye ne sang ha ye ne shang chu sen ge dang ba le ne ni ji gang ye da ten ge ne sha dong che ye ro 다 냥가 체쇼데 소소기 피기게 당치데 소무투비 당치데 해거여서나 아니 당치데를 도터데를 아니 예빠도 그래 고 나이 담마샤체 아니 당순 가래이나 아니 당순기 아니 송사기 때 문제제 아니 델라 도터데 아니 소소기 아니 문제제 투비 토네 아니 제샤제다 아니 콜 시체 가래체 고도 세데 때 냥가 쳐보러
so here there's a difference between the root vows of the tantric root vows and as well as the difference between the 18 root vows of the bodhisattvas. So now the Rinpoche is saying that the most important part is to ensure that you are able to identify each and every vows, the particular vows that you should be able to identify each and every vows. So once you are able to identify, then it is essential for one to make sure that you are actually not, you're actually not breaking those vows, and try your best to observe those vows. And if somehow that you understand that you're actually breaking the vows, then you should do something which will prevent you from engaging in such actions which actually transgress your vows. So, for instance, if one is taking a tantric vows, and if it's not simply that I have taken a tantric vows and just counting those tantric vows every day, but you have to identify the tantric vows every day individually and making sure those tantric vows have not been, you are not doing something that is contradictory to what the vows or the commitment that you have taken. If this is so, then if you know that you're actually breaking the tantric vows, then there's a way of restoring those tantric vows by engaging in practice of self initiation, so on and so forth, and which will restore your broken commitments and vows. And then when it comes to the bodhisattva's vow, then you should have a confession practice. You should engage in confession practice with a great regrets and remorse, and committing not to engage in such actions in the future. So this will restore your bodhisattva's vow.
ni telan ge so nge kare che ko se la ya na ni mi telan je se che ne ni tela ni ka re ni don sen ka de ten go re ani laba de ni ta de ta tong gi tong de jong sa ya tong de ya so ya la kare che ko re se de sa ni dan ji lo ya ba sang ha ya na ni ya na jing ko on sa de shu go re ya na jing ko yin de na dan ju len go re ni shang chu sen gi dang ba de ni so na shang chu sen gi dang ba yang so ne ni na me zhong de le ne ni dang ba ya so ya ni so da la yang ko che che de che me sen gi yang be de shi che che mu tu gi de ra yo ro.
So now here one thing that we need to understand is when one is when you come to acknowledge that you are actually engaged in certain actions which is contradictory to one's vow, then immediately one should have great regrets and remorse without ignoring it, which will become a great, one of the great confession practice of great regrets and remorse, and committing not to engage in such actions in the future, which is one of the great antidotes towards, broken vows. As we mentioned earlier, if one is taking the tantric vows, and if one come to understand that you have actually you're actually breaking, or you have already broke your tantric vows, then one should, in order to restore and revitalize your vows, one should take engage in the practice of the self-initiations, which is Danju in Tibetan, which literally means the self-initiations, initiating oneself. And then for the restoration of bodhisattva's vow, one should take a bodhisattva's vow by oneself, or one can take a bodhisattva's vow from one's teacher, masters, and so on to restore.
나저 초저기 당소라야 더스노 비제 인치톤 지샤들이나 아니 담바데 송거에 가랭이 바데 사라진 건제체 아니 카시 삼바는 제는 중에 뭐도 아니 된저기 돈이 저 전상주 선 전세로 된저기 가제 소소라지 게쇼라 천하강라 강제투지 아니 바쇼들이 님했다네 강 도도도 단 제선도 동생이 제거네 샤다 제마도 개매와 대백 개체물이다 아주 강가래 다 녀쳐서 시험이 지만 나 칼로 체라서 나 집에 지잖아. 근데 강가 오늘 타이어바지 시사인 봐.
So here now we have all those root vows, secondary vows of bodhisattva, as well as the tantric vows, roots and secondary vows, and so forth, are all translated in English. And we can find easily those translations. So you can go through that and identify that. Very important to identify each and every one of those vows. We can't just take those vows lightly. Once you have taken the vows, it is always our, responsibility to safeguarding those vows, observing those vows. If one is unable to do that, by transgressing these vows, we accumulate a great amount of negativities, which the result will be faced by ourselves, will experience by ourselves. So the best, for when you understand, or when you know that you have gone through actions that are contradictory to your vows or your commitments, then Gesem and Domsem, which means regret and remorse, followed by committing not to engage in such actions in the future, are the one of the direct antidotes or direct means for revitalizing one's vows. Because that all of us have received numerous empowerments, initiation, so on and so forth. So it is very important for us to do something and understand we're not engaging in actions that are contradictory to one's commitment and one's vow. So this is the question, the answer that I would give so far.
I would like to ask a question if possible. Actually, I have two. So once everyone's had a chance, if there's time, I'd like to ask a second. But my first one, I was just wondering why Lama Tsongkhapa doesn't talk about the 10 perfections, and he only talks about the 6 perfections as being a fixed number.
지난 주원이에서 당구대 대인사 가서 난다 완전히 Lam Rim 시작 세그멘트다. 이름 제 Lam Rim 대나리아다. 파신 쪽마다 쭉 가진 소위 말해서 파신 쭉 가진한 쭉 정도 왔다. 제름 제 대나 쪽마다 가진 소위 말해서 됐어야 하시죠.
주다체나 둘레만 그 말했을라다.
So in general, we do not need more than 6 when it comes to the perfections. We do not need more than 6.
내가로 가르쳐서는로 상추기 생제의 쇼발을 로요데 타마타마되게 레카데 가르쳐서나 아니 돈이 또비 로이 아니 시리 참아 봐야 되러 돈이 또비 로이 시리 참아 봐야 되라 되게 싫어지 바르듯이 신바로 되게 뭐 얘나 미 너무나 다시는 파시트는 지수만 되어야지 수도 되어야 말이야.
So here now, let's talk about, by engage, engagement of the practice of the 6 perfections. So the bodhisattvas, when they, by transiting from one bhumi to another bhumi, it is through meditative equipoise. At the end, to gain state of complete enlightenment is by overcoming or eliminating this subtlemost obscurations, which is the obscuration to omniscience, which can be eradicated by means of wisdom realizing emptiness. So once you have generated bodhicitta and followed by all this practice of the 6 perfections, and the perfection of the wisdom will become a direct antidote towards obscuration to omniscience, which will lead oneself to the state of enlightenment and what else we need. Although we have certain terms, 10 perfection and so forth, but all of them are actually included within the 6 perfections.
Yala deda tangje ne tube shiro tendo sonse di ene pashin chula soba yonso zoba de ene tomba tonyu tobe lo shiro ge tendo la somba le sewi di tatu basa de tonyu tobe lo ga bagore tonyu tobe lo de cha ro ane kase ge seche chere chedan ro ane tama ene shiji bacha da jebale nyebo chenge de tonyu tobe lo shiro rare me ta na ma ta na tonyu tobe shiro rang gon bagore.
So as we talked about earlier, now everything that all those teachings that are given by the Buddhas or means for cultivating wisdom. So whatever cultivating wisdom, realizing emptiness. Okay, so therefore all those practice of the generosity, ethical discipline, patience, and so on and so forth, all those practice are given means for cultivating wisdom, realizing emptiness. Okay, you have 2 questions. So what's the other questions?
Is there room
The
for
other
one more?
question was, what's that?
Okay.
If somebody else has a question, we can just come back to me.
If anyone has
Okay.
a question.
This is Bonnie. I'm wondering if I may ask a question. Can you hear me?
Please.
Yeah.
My question is this. I have been doing this learning or trying to learn for over 20 years. And I am...
learning. What can you repeat what you're learning for over 20 years?
I started studying Buddhism in 1998.
Oh, okay.
And whatever I managed to gain has been lost as I age. There is not one day in which I can practice or keep commitments to any extent that could be considered satisfactory. So every morning when I do my water bowls, what I have come to now is this. I know I am not the one who succeeds, but I am the one who tries. I shall not be here for many more decades. I think all I can do now in the last days of my life is to set the aim to be the one who tries. Maybe in my next life, when I have a brand new body and a brand new mind, if I say every day, I'm the one who tries, do you think I might meet with the Dharma again, or have I lost it through my incapacity?
당연히 did my 닝드인데 my 学习 그러지.
Yeah.
근데 did 마우실라스데 데르서 다 로 페젠다 주고 니슈 생각 소소 안데 가소래 뭐라 나제 냠네 제비스 없다. 고주 고게니 간데 칠 주동 고주 고게니 나제 냠네 제 고소 그래데 이면에다 so nyamlen de ta kanda lo ken ken to be kablia chik nyame tangama nyamlen che che jo da de chik so chik tamse de tomba le che ge de de ta da de me be so lo ken to de lo ken kwa cha yon de nyamlen de cha san ta da che do me be so tong do de che de kan ya ta chik ta morong ine da morong su morong ne da mola dugle capture wa and chik kunong che and kaze to ya jege be ke jere de ne ta yung me be so ta chik pe na shoge ya lam ne so and chik namjen ta ba chik ne gan ji do che ya ge chunbe and chik chebo pe da de ge cha san chi wo res yin ne chik ta chik 미스 델야 지 고소 소소지 람나 시야지 딱 하고 싶어라 제게 베서 동도스 얘네 단대 갑려다 지 소소 담세도 돈바 냠발 마테바 안 단대 다지 소소다 군로 단대 다 가제 토도 강에 지원 지긴 삼에 군로 되게 근데 마음벌 세치말이야 소소야지 다 뭐라 셈 사버스도 다 간다지 다 개와 사버치네 개와 사버치네 안 될이야 다 개외신이 다 직제 안 대화 좀 줘야 제제 안 되네 야지 얘기 줘야래야지 간다지 리버스 캡스 요러 베서럽시 안데르 셔지 다 닝드르시 뭐
더가랑래라다 근로데 차라게 단다게 근로 쥐어당게 삼바게 최소 따와게 코던데 지는 노면도스 메티네 텔 세큐잖아 제마트네 용거래다 생겼달라 아니 지 컨트롤러에 대 차비가네 아니 세슈지제다 뭐네 코 맞소게 데로 추세데 셈비테네 자에르마도 수베테네 제마로 자자자 저랑이 수수건 맞추어야나 덴서여레 자자시와라게 라니 게겐소 진세데로.
So here the most important part for us as a practitioner, regardless of how long we may have practiced, but important to remember is to have a positive motivations, maintaining positive motivations. It's very, very important. And do not let your motivations, stained by other, conceptions, such as negative thoughts and emotions. But rather, one should maintain a positive motivation, of virtuous motivations, and maintain one's devotion and faith to three jewels. And so motivation is the key factor for developing one's spiritual practice. Spiritual practice doesn't not much actually rely upon our physical and verbal actions. It should come within, and it should come from one's motivations. So therefore, if one is able to maintain a positive motivation, the virtuous motivation at this time, and suddenly in your future life, the next life, in other words, when you have a new body with a new body and a new existence, suddenly you'll be able to have a chance of meeting spiritual teachers with the teachings, so that you can progress and continue your practice and make a progress in the practice that you may have done in your past life. So therefore, it should be always within us. That's just as the Shantideva has stated in the Guide to the Bodhisattva's Way of Life. One should be one's own savior, and one is one's own savior, and one is one's own enemy. So it's all referring to one's own motivation.
내가 치쇼 때 가르쳐는 강에 가르칠 때는 될 동네제 선바 투무지 선바 시대자도 그 강에 가르치는 용거를 써야 돼. 용거 써야지 천하 문제와지 가르치는 용거를 가서 용거 유행이 바로 마속에 다 이슈도 때 로자이 놓인 다로 다야 저서 마사고 그래. 내가 가서 라시 쓰는 유행이 바로 써야지 강에 될 동네제 투비 된 선바의 시대다 아니 선바의 대바다 이제 공이 라신지 초토와 연소나 강에 제 책임만 마음과 강에 책임만 단다 강에 책임만.
So here now, we, as a practitioner, we should always prepare ourselves. The difficulty is bound to happen. We can't escape from the difficulty or the, unconditioned or is unwanted circumstances. It is bound to happen, So we should always open to that. But the important part here is now, regardless of what kind of difficulty that I may face, I will not let my mind, lose the sight of peace and serenity. That is very, very important. It is, we should always commit ourselves. I will maintain my peace of mind, regardless of what may be going in my surrounding. I will keep my mind as peaceful as possible. So therefore, this peacefulness of one's mind can be maintained by cultivating a genuine faith in three jewels, cultivation of compassion, and the combination of these two positive motivations, faith and compassion, will then germinate and sustain our peace of mind.
But
this is all of us, This is not particularly answer to the Bani, but it is for all of us.
Yeah.
Any question? So if there's no question, so Rinpoche said he will just continue from the text.
Yeah. Dereda, Tajing Loiba, one of us may get again, one of Jibi Passion will be take a lossona, Saint Taji, any Togolos of Kangi, maybe, any Jibi Passion will be Terilana, any Hama Petang is Sanji, some of the Jibi Passion Zoya Maroa, and Tanda, Saint Japo in London, ya condo do us get it, Chete Mares.
So we talked about earlier, right? That is, what is the perfection of generosity? It says the, bringing the perfection of generosity is to completion is not the completion is not contingent on removing being's poverty by giving gifts to others. This is not so, right? It says otherwise, since there are still remaining many destitute living beings, all the living beings. So if this is the case, then it says all the earlier conquerors, the Buddhas or the Bodhisattvas, would not have attained perfection of generosity. It's a very
Jorojita, Denachi, on the Shibis Carresana, Dena Lidanga Mesoi, Senso Jude, Jubate, Deta Rana Dobi, Ludon Geza Tanchi, Sending Zimba Johnny, Jala Samba Tabane, Donshin, Desan de Manzi, Toyin Jebanajan, Sejela Davi, Lo. 공바 용수 조바나 아니 젬비 파로도 심바 조로 송도 대다 슌줄래.
Here now, let's read through the text here again. Therefore, the physical and verbal aspect of generosity are not the main thing, it says. The main thing is the mental aspect. This is because you perfect generosity after you destroy your stingy clinging to all that you own, your body, resources, and root of virtue. And you completely condition your mind to giving them away to living beings from the depth of your heart. And not only that, but also to giving to others the effects of this giving as well. Thus engaging in the bodhisattva deeds says.
단지 geloi ba chidai na ngacho lyunga singe de kyunlo chi ye roba de chiro lü de nga ge leka singe de senji ge kyunlo ge gyujo do ne ni ma dan yong yo so ne jin sa ne nyanga cheshu de lyunga zo ma re ni semba de so re yes de jin kare ne da re ngaso.
So here now, the physical and verbal aspect is not very important here, it says. It is not the main thing, remember? It is the mental aspect. That is what is matter. Yeah, because all our actions of the body and speech are forced or derived by our motivation. So therefore, as long as you're able to control your motivations and then actions of the body and speech will not arise. So therefore, the mental aspect is the main thing.
Teche. Ne laba to lü da nga ye sena chongor sene la gojuk chojo marwa. Linga ye sena mebo zo sena gojo mane.
So moreover, you know, one should, you know, get rid of one's stinginess by means of body actions of the body and speech, which doesn't make any sense at all. You know, there's abandonment of stinginess must come from within.
Rangi lü longshe genso de jebala ma chape mar chapi sena de chongye ani tongsen ge semba ji lo ja ja tong tuye nzimba shu chemo menge ngason mason le sha yo da jibi nyangle yenge da pa da shangchu senge nyangle yenge da ganga da ye ma le de sha sha yo da ganga jiba yenge ji cha yo da ka kese ka du xian.
So destroying your stingy clinging to that all that you own, your body, resources, and root of virtue. You know, it should come from within. It is through by means of cultivating a non-attachment towards one's body, resources, and things that belongs to you, as well as the root of one's virtue and so forth. So without you know overcoming or without eliminating this attachment towards such things, it is not possible to have a practice of generosity in accordance with the bodhisattva's deed.
So ye uma jiba ne che de jida de ba che hal le che le ge ba ne pena jida shen je jeda to zang ze ngala ji jero ji se ne shang chu sem ba le ya rewa jaba zang je ne dra jang ba de se ge ni ri ba cha de je ba pang bi ye dewa le ga ye re so re zhuang hang so de se ge ni na dra jang bi dewa de nga so ge che le ge ba ro ni ri pang bi dewa ro da jida shen je jeda to zang je se de dra jang ba de da ye ni na dra jang bi dewa le ha ba ji here, in
the supplement to the Nagarjuna's deities on the middle way by Chandrakriti with the Madhyamaka Avatara, where he has stated that the blissful, if we were to compare the blissful experience, the blissful experience actualized by the bodhisattvas and the arhats of the Pratyeka Buddha and Shervakas. You know, just it says now, the explanation goes that the bodhisattvas, by mere hearing from someone saying that, can you give me something? At the moment the bodhisattvas hear this word, can you give me something? The very word will enable the bodhisattvas to generate an unconceivable blissful experience within the stream, within the mind stream of the bodhisattvas. It is far more, profound, blissful experience than the blissful experience of the arhats of the Pratyeka Buddha and Shervakas.
파 동생 슈침보 요 맞아 땅에 전이라 마음번 저부터지 선지 저버려와데 커트 상주요 말이 소한테 근데 로데 공소나 아니 지미 파세做了
rimche tuji se de sulo na de para che se yang tang le ji
당가 좀 심바 파 동생에 보면 파 동발라 때네 아니 장이 인 저부터의 차선생의 진료요 말이 대양 아니 장시 선제타지 대중이 된다는 말도 장이라 저불라 저와 진료요 말이 손도 진주의 로지 공소나 될래 준비 파신 줘 봤어 그래
So now what is the criteria over the completion of perfection of generosity, or the parameter of generosity, in other words? So the criteria over this is now, even when you are giving something, when you are engaging in practice of generosity by giving something to someone, you should not cling to your result by thinking that, oh, I will engage in practice of generosity, I may have a wonderful result by means of this practice. This should not be happening. You shouldn't have that kind of clinging towards that. But rather, your very purpose of giving to engaging in practice of just generosity is for the benefit of entire sentient being. This should be the motivation. This should be the motivations. If your practice with generosity is accompanied by such motivations, then this is what we call the completion or perfection of practice of generosity, or the parameter of generosity.
대다양 신주래 개된 로와 유보와 진비 파르신이나 다동 로텐 유나후 조바 제다 파르신 도바 탕치 제제 때 주오균라 당생지 진비 파르신 손데 대다 때네 세니도 시에서 대나 진비 파신지 냥래 내 무스 제신라 동아 매장 동이 선바 것만에 제진 제배도 당와 인노 송지
So now, thus engaging in the bodhisattva's deed says, if generosity were perfected by removing beings' poverty, since beings are still destitute, how could past saviors have perfected it, right? And generosity is perfected, it is said, through the attitude of giving away to all beings, all your possessions, along with the effects of this. Therefore, generosity is the state of mind. Thus, the practice of perfection of generosity entails generating in various ways the intention of give and steadily increasing this generosity, even though you may not be actually giving away something to others. So let's Rinpoche is saying that let's not have class in our next Sunday. So then again, you can go ahead and make a schedule to four Sundays in January. I mean, the next last 2 Sundays, 3 Sundays scheduled. So you can go ahead and you can send a schedule to others. The first Sunday of this month, of the month.
당가서 대리네 준비네 뒤송도 사비 교환나 쇼지도 담에 털어대네. 아니 제세 상추 준비 담발래네. 아니 담바 취진도 손에 제세 주셔봐라. 취진도 로네. 아니 조베 상제주 고모니와니와 타버 지잖아 샤오. 아니 셰니 바연 되나 쉬베 라마노 제 신절로도서 사네. 아니 나다.
So now let's do our dedications by that means of the gathering the virtues of 3 times, by means of gathering my virtues, the root virtues of 3 times, and following the deeds of the bodhisattvas, having received the bodhisattva's vow, may I gain the state of enlightenment for the benefit of all other sentient beings as soon as possible, So may all the Buddhas and Bodhisattvas in the 10 directions bless me to be able to do this.
Dāgī chīnyī sābī gyāvān dī, dī dāng zhōvā kyunā gāmbī, chēvā jūzhūn lōsāng chāvā yī, dēmbī jīmbō rīndō sējī shū, chēvā kyun sājī bījī shūjī mīndō chāng, shirā nījī nī, jīmbā dī, sāngjī shīndō mīndī bīwā, 如今能到新了是我手，借我更多养到那么多，人民求救变了龙学经，撒旦能救有点绕左呢，多久强给国风人多手，也当古着，面对那个那样讨厌你，天天人都别来做你。 卡达扬巴刚谢萨巴的罗密马的给当着我，南真家业安波大九节，天马顺便菜烧更多样，家别养就随便接送的，天边人把更上浪接着，年年周边接那年些。 让给之间多别浪接的，修着在外超越头给，若越遇见面包谁些呢？教育担保有人在着急，担保人间出给马桥么？悄悄娘把就别说的呢，你就全部一绕就把一，偏的是我写不出。 世间教育民众成了来着上求浪者人别讲，他对浪者也浪别的心，教育自保人都穷究竟，老早周边天前着些经，眼睛世界门当门面给，才让更多家园好不也。 能当这我们就刚才天把求了就是的，最近住了这把的。 我就算老命过才绕的，那个城里小就结不动，路上点别这面少送的，若也民生大多年就起，刚着绕文过于心刚，偏当的我们的就业，现在在我的这叫作业。 小白身体不多，点就起；江白保育接大钱包，更多上坡点样点钱的，点到更就结束道路去，阎王点到当街绕多光，对上西北叫我当街。 我刚了就到我把的，大钱给月早晚的给讲，从不学习绕多我